Everything that you do in this magnificent city is a cultural experience. You go out into the public realm, into the street, you bump into people you might know, you chat with the grocer that you're now familiar with. You see the fishmonger down the street washing down the sidewalk in the early morning. And when you get to the kiosk, you're probably familiar with the person selling you the newspaper, and you might discuss the daily politics for a brief moment. But this is a civic act. It is a cultural act. It is a political act.
Well, I think that the American towns were, some years back, not that different from European towns, that they were extremely complex and well-functioning urban units. The difference came with the unbelievable development in the 50s of large monopoly capitalism.
Well, the source of the problem was right after the Second World War, planning became the domain of specialists. I think there's been nothing worse for the American city than specialization.
So instead of having a mixed use by pockets like parishes or urban districts or urban quarters, you would have the building programs split up in large campuses which would either be educational, industrial, or administrative, or residential.
Those four elements are single use. When you go to the shopping center, you can only shop there. When you go to the office park, you can only work there. You can't live near, etc. And where you live, which is very often a walled community, you meet people only exactly your age, income, demographic, quality, and so forth.
After the Second War, buildings really became consumer products. And many of the developers began to look at buildings as things that you built with someone else's money. You built it as quickly and as cheaply as possible, and you unloaded it, and you got away from it. But it's very American, that endless one-way street, and you build convenience things along the side, and you can get to them quickly. Wasn't a very pleasant place, but it was very convenient. Americans are obsessed with convenience.
And actually the pattern of suburbia is so specialized, not only by use, by shopping, being away from working, etc., but by income. The Americans in the suburbs fear each other by income, by income level, and they are terribly afraid that somebody with lesser income might live near them.
God forbid that you should put a house in there that's less than that market value, because it brings the housing values down. The fact that we are so separated from one another in the way that we live together. The suburbs have done nothing but isolate the individual from all his or her neighbors, and they've isolated the neighborhood from any larger context of the city.
We think that it's actually possible to suburbanize the whole globe. But by doing that, of course, we add so many burdens on traffic, we add so many burdens in wastage, we add so many burdens in the destruction of the countryside.
You can't find either a city or a countryside. We invented this new horizontal sprawl that's deadening.
So it's this aberration that has emerged, terrible for society.
It's tragic that for many Americans, the best interior setting they'll ever have is their new Japanese car, which is probably better designed than anything they're going to live in. It's certainly better designed than the areas they walk around in.
I mean, rolling around with 4 tons of steel at your edges is not a particularly a friendly way of approaching people. As a matter of fact, it's downright dangerous.
I went to primary, secondary school for 15 years without the use of any bus, never accompanied by parents, always on foot, always in town. It worked extremely well, so for me it was an everyday experience.
That is the reason that the middle class, for the first time in American history, can't afford housing. It is for the first time that it is mandatory to own an automobile if you're an adult. Cities are basically disgraceful to be in because they're very, very good for cars and not good for humans, certainly.
It is about understanding that cities are entities which are living and breathing with human beings, and that these human beings need to be facilitated in the way that they interact.
You know, neighborhoods are the fundamental habitat of man. And a neighborhood is a place where you can ideally live, work, gather, and shop, you know, within walking distance.
You can't create communities, it's just not possible. Communities are about people, and the idea that an architect could create a community is absolute phenomenal arrogance. But what an architect can do is he can destroy it, or he can inhibit people creating a community should they want one. He can also help them should they want one.
Rockefeller Center is still the greatest and most well-conceived modern office complex in the world. Connects to the subway, has mezzanines, has a skating rink, has shops, banks, beautiful murals, a roof deck, a wonderful restaurant on the top, roof terraces, everything that is supposed to be in an interesting city in Rockefeller Center.
There should be a balance between nature and the city.
But balance in all affairs is what the healthy life is about. That balance requires, and that's the obligations of citizens, citizen soldiers, citizen jurors, citizen urbanists, to check all the time and see how well they're doing.
You see, the traditional city is an environmentally positive city.
It's very important that if you grow up in a place, it's not just your family which is important, but it's the whole, the street and the society, that the town, you know, creates an attachment which feels that you come from somewhere.
I remember my grandmother holding me in the window and watching the gypsies come by with the dancing bears. And we came from different cultures, the gypsies and us, but we shared for one moment this public space, the street. I from my window perch, and these people from the street. Well, it's these images that have, in a sense, followed me through my life.
Is, of course, a relationship between one building and another, and the relationship between one building and an open public space, be that a street, be that a square. And out of that relationship, the emergence of a sense of a family, so that a city is actually seen not as a mechanical repetition of identical elements, but as a family.
So most American cities should be downzoned tomorrow morning, and it would improve the long-term economy of those cities enormously, and you wouldn't have these wastelands at the center of the city.
Obviously, that's the direction that the whole movement has to go in, is re-inhabiting the leftover and the destroyed spaces. And those are both inner city ghettos and suburban strip areas. I mean, these are all, you know, places that have lost their sense of scale, humanity, diversity, sense of place.
And you can't have a great city without rich and poor people living downtown. It's the first requirement of healthy cities.
It means that there isn't one American dream anymore, that there are lots of them, and how they come together is what communities are all about, and that's what communities are for. The American dream has to become more frugal, and this is a very profound challenge. The middle class economic foundation is collapsing globally.
So one of the reasons I think to hope is, instead of expanding cities, is that to redevelop areas which can be profitably redeveloped.
We are still very entrepreneurial and rich, and we don't have so much arrogance yet that we don't learn from mistakes. I mean, the preservation movement is a recognition, oh my God, we're pulling down all this stuff that we like. So we're not going to do that anymore. We learn faster, and the political system with all of its problems is still very, very flexible.
It's all about increasing choices. Yes, you can own a car. Yes, you can drive, but you also don't have to. Yes, you can build a modernist building, but you're not forced to. All of these things are a choice. And that's really the true American city. You actually propose all alternatives, wide streets, narrow streets, you know, environmental ways of living, even less environmental ones, lawn if you wish, native species if you wish. And the choice so often comes on the virtuous side of the equation. That's what you find, is that actually there's something terribly virtuous about this country. Given the choice, it'll come on the right side. They'd rather not be consumers. I think they'd rather be citizens, you know, given the choice.